Welcome to Bridging the Education Gap, the podcast where parents, teachers, and education leaders come together to share insights, stories, and strategies that connect learning at home and in school. Whether you're a parent navigating homework struggles, a teacher fostering classroom breakthroughs, or an education leader seeking innovative solutions, this is your space to learn, grow, and collaborate. Each week, we dive into real conversations about education, from tackling pain points to celebrating success stories, all with one goal: to bridge the gap and empower every child's learning journey. I'm your host, Jessica Shelley. Let's get started. Today's guest is someone I felt an instant connection with the moment we started talking. Amanda Flores is a former fourth grade teacher turned MTSS coach, and now she works in learning and development in the corporate space. But more than any title, Amanda is a heart-forward, high-achieving educator with a clear-eyed view of both the challenges and the possibilities within our education system. From mentoring novice teachers in Title I schools to navigating a major career pivot as a single parent, Amanda's story is equal parts inspiring and real. If you're a school leader, teacher, or thinking about your next steps in education, this episode is for you. Let's dive in. Amanda, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Wow, what an intro. Who is she? That was great.
I'm so excited for our conversation today. So let's give our listeners a little bit of context. Take us back to the beginning. What first drew you to the classroom and education?
Absolutely. So I was that textbook kid who wanted to be a teacher from the moment I came out of the womb. I made all of the dolls and my poor brother be a student while I just passed out paperwork on the bed the entire time. I knew that I wanted to be an educator from the jump. And so I was just that textbook kid who said I wanted to be a teacher from childhood, and I fully took that and ran with it. I started out as a daycare teacher in learning centers, and then slowly pivoted into and did that mainly throughout college, and then pivoted into the first school post internship, and I loved it so much that I stayed there. So I love education. I love the community that surrounds education, and every bit about it still guides my life to this point.
And you taught fourth grade. So what was it about that grade level specifically that maybe helped you stay connected?
Absolutely. So during my internship, I thought I wanted the babies. I love the kindergartners. They're so funny. Now I am the parent of a kindergartner, and it's funny in a lot of ways. My internship was in fifth grade, which was the opposite realm of the elementary ed track. And so once I fell in love with the big kids, I was like, oh, they understand the wit, the sarcasm, content. I can work through things a little bit easier. And so for me, I felt like I was thriving in fifth grade when it came to my internship. But then I was placed in fourth grade, and I fell in love with it, right? Fifth graders are so awesome, and they know they're awesome. Fourth graders are learning to be awesome and still so receptive to the norms that I was like, these are my people. These are my people. So fourth grade is definitely where I fell into and bounced from when it came to that. And then as a coach, I did 3, 4, 5. And again, the dynamics between those 3 grade levels are so different. I think that unless you are in that space, you don't understand how different a third grader is from a fourth grader to a fifth grader. And so fourth graders are my jam to this day. Whenever I meet a kid and they're like, I'm in fourth grade, I'm like, isn't it amazing? And they're like, isn't it? I don't know. They'll get it.
I love it. I love it. And it is so true. Even at the elementary level, every grade level is so different. I taught kinder first and second, but in my time as a coach, I did full K-5. And it was you can definitely see the nuance of every single age and developmental stage.
And then when it gets closer to summer, that's when it's most dangerous, because then the lines get skewed. Where is this emotionally a third grader or a fifth grader? Who knows anymore? It's summer. We're at the end of it.
Right. Everyone is in that kind of stage. Am I in? Am I out? At what capacity and when?
Absolutely.
But yeah, you mentioned a little bit about your transition to coaching. So what motivated you to transition from classroom teacher to coach?
So I think how you introduced me in the beginning, I am an overachiever in my soul. My therapist jokes around that the children of immigrants tend to be overachievers and something to prove. And that is in my DNA. Growth was something that I truly wanted at every point of it. And so once I was in my own classroom, I was trying to find opportunities for growth within there, whether it was just grade level chair to then moving to coaching. I knew that I didn't want the education path personally, but I wanted something more. So what does that look like? I kept looking at like the areas around me and realizing, maybe I can take my skills, maybe I can take the tools that I have and look beyond just these walls and kind of supporting not just the people in this building, but how do I look for more? And so ultimately what transitioned me out was that growth bit. And so while I was in it was really just like the growing of myself, but also how do I grow within other teachers? Mentoring novice teachers was so huge and I loved it so much and really helped me even in my career today. How I navigate within adults who are learning new skills has been just like so instrumental, right? So like my own growth and the growth of others ultimately led me to where I'm at today.
Yeah. And you mentioned supporting new teachers and how that's instrumental in your growth in kind of corporate space now. What was one of those, or like maybe some of those strategies that you implemented as a coach to really support and build up those new teachers that have transitioned over towards that corporate role now that you have?
So ultimately, like creating that support system for new teachers is where we start seeing some of that societal success for our own profession, right? So some of them being outside of my reach, even when I was mentoring novice teachers, some of that within my own reach, like helping them implement really great strategies that could be effective and made and worked for them, right? I wanted teachers to have the autonomy in their own classrooms, but I wanted them to feel the support within that freedom that they had too. So, but that comes, it's not linear, it's not granular. It is so systemic. It is in so many different pieces. It's like from the policies of trusting professionals to relevant internships to make sure that these graduates know what they have expecting, that knows what's coming for them, right? So when I tried, I felt like the most impactful thing throughout that mentorship, that partnership was really done through giving them the supports that they had while also letting them drive what the success was in their classroom. I could not walk into their classroom and say that I know the best thing for their students when they're in it. They're in that granular. So what can I do? Like what systems and tools do I have that can fully help them feel supported while they navigate that was where I really felt was the most impactful for me in that season. And then moving into that within corporate spaces today, I think a lot of that still is very much embedded into the process that I have now. I am a training facilitator. So how do I still say, I don't want you to throw the water out entirely of what you have. Let's take the skills that you have and strengthen them with the processes that we have and see how we can fully find success together with as an organization. So a lot of those things kind of mesh together when it comes to not just children's like learning theory, but also adult learning theory. They're so embedded. And I don't think that a lot of us realize those things today.
Yeah. And like that ownership piece too of like having them have the voice and the choice. I mean, I think about that a lot in the classroom. Like those are kind of common phrases we hear when teachers are implementing things with students. But ultimately, like this is what we're seeing from like school leaders or instructional coaches. Like the teachers need to have a voice and a choice in what's happening as well, because ultimately they know what's happening with their students better than what we could maybe assume.
And when we take away that choice, it really takes away their drive, right? Like nothing says more, I'm going to lose this teacher than saying, hey, the expertise you have, I want you to put in your pocket because I'm going to give you something else that's better, right? Everybody has their own skill set. How do we nurture that to make sure they stay in these professions? So it really is just so embedded all together.
I think if there's one stakeholder too that we're kind of missing so far in the conversation, which is families and parents. And as we're talking about voice and choice and ownership, like who else knows their children better really than parents? So what misconceptions do you see that families might have about the school, or like how can we help bridge that gap between home and school a little bit better?
Absolutely. So I think that ultimately I taught in a lot of Title I schools. And so the misconception specifically in Title I schools is that these are students that need supports because they don't have that family engagement, right? But Title I schools tend to have really highly skilled teachers and deeply committed teachers at that. And when we talk about these teachers that like bring so much of that growth into the classroom, we also, to your same point, have to talk about the families who bring those children into those classroom settings as well. And so I am the product of a Title I school. I'm the product of a public education system. So ultimately, when I align myself to that Title I community, that was me. That was my family in it. And a lot of times that misconception is that we have disengaged parents. We have parents who are working too much to pour into their children, and that couldn't be further from the truth, because a lot of the barriers that they do have don't tend to become because of their children. It's how do we still support our children through these barriers, right? Other populations might not have them, but they are still very much active and engaged in their child's progress throughout the entirety of it. So I feel like there's one thing that I would love everyone to like toss out would definitely be that Title I parents are disengaged parents, because it is not the case in every setting. It's definitely been debunked in the settings that I have been in and been a part of, for sure.
Yeah. And then you went through, then we talk about teachers as parents, right? So like not only are we serving the students in our classroom, but then at the end of the day, we're going home to serve our family
Yeah.
and take care of our children. Let's talk a little bit about what made you make this shift from, education to the corporate setting.
Yeah. So I think that, listen, I am a single parent. And so sometimes there comes this teaching thrives on martyrdom, right? It thrives on the martyrdom of working adults and specifically women. It is a female dominated profession. And without overgeneralizing it, it really is just an unfortunate trend that we're seeing. It's really just that level of self-sacrifice that we have to, address, right? It comes in that virtue because it's for the children, all for the children, right? We're so heroic that we spend our finances, our emotional time, we overextend ourselves in every capacity. And all it does is just lead us into like driving home in silence. And then when we put our car in park, we're just like aimlessly scrolling because we finally sat in a moment of silence and we're like, wow, this is so nice. But ultimately, it really is just like, how do we fix this? How do we fix this martyrdom of teachers pouring themselves, overextending themselves so much that it's leading to teacher burnout? It's leading to this mass exodus. How do we fix this in one of our, even not just like systemically, but how do we fix it in our day-to-day lives? How do we ask teachers who are in classrooms today to only work contract hours? I wanted to be that teacher who only works contract hours. Maybe when enough of us are working just contract hours and walk out, we'll make a change. But so you're going to tell me, the overachiever who needs everything to be perfect, and I don't want to come in the next day and not know what I'm doing, right? How do we do that? How do we create those healthy boundaries and have those sustainable practices? But by having those in our systems, like having those stakeholders like our educational leaders, like our superintendents, like our admins that are there to help nurture us. How do we keep people in these spaces, but by ensuring we have those sustainable practices for teachers, or else we are going to find ourselves, and we've already found ourselves in it today with this mass exodus. But it really is just like, how do we, it's an ongoing conversation in this profession. How do we avoid teacher burnout? We just keep talking about it. How do we actually do it? How do we actually do it?
I think that's like the biggest question, right? It's like, and as you're describing, oh yeah, you drive home in silence and then you sit there and you scroll and I'm like, oh gosh, all right, what is happening right now? Like, have you seen my past life? Because I'm right there with you. And then like, even as you're scrolling, your feed is all like Pinterest ideas for in the classroom and teacher, support groups and all of the things. Like, oh, okay, well, I need to get this ready because it's not actually silent. It's not actually off. It's everything all the time.
Absolutely. And it's not, I wish I could tell you, man, my algorithm right now is just self-care and healthy boundaries when it really is just like, hey, that is a really engaging activity that I want to implement with my kids. So like we are working off the clock. The overextension, even mentally, takes a toll. And especially like where I found myself was as a single parent, I want to pour into my children just like I pour into everyone else's children. And I, being the overachiever, I wanted to have the Pinterest, the cutest and most engaging classroom, the most accessible classroom, and also the one that nurtured learning the most, while also creating curriculum that differentiated enough for enough learners and also met the needs of all of my students, while also juggling, what am I going to pick up for dinner tonight? Because I'm not making dinner. The juggling of how do I stay a highly effective teacher and still remain a really great parent was a question that I often had to juggle. How do we juggle all these plates? Some of these plates are going to be plastic. Some of them are going to be to-go containers because it was impossible to figure out both.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like you mentioned it too, like how do we prevent teacher burnout? Like I don't think it's just one clear answer. Otherwise we would have already done it. It really is like those systemic sort of things, as you mentioned, the support, the after hours. Oh, can you stay late for this meeting? Oh, we have to have this IEP meeting on Thursday. You have to get all your data ready to go in preparation for this, right? Like the sheer amount of information and decisions that we're making on a daily basis. Like they say that moms make a lot of decisions. Let's add moms plus teachers.
Well,
like especially you do have children at home, you're like making it for, okay, what is happening when my child is at their school during the day or at their daycare during the day? Do I need to pack lunch for them? Like, oh my gosh. Just like overwhelm of decisions and all of the things to consider. So, when it came to you and your story, what were some of those signs that told you that it might be time to explore something new? Maybe some of those feelings or behaviors, relationships, anything that you want to share there.
So I think that for me, it was really, there has been a trend of teachers leaving, a lot of teachers leaving. Teachers are a community by ourselves, right? If you meet another teacher on the supermarket, you're automatically like, oh, yep, that's a kindergarten teacher if I've ever met one. And you start, like, we just find our people and we just connect anytime we meet each other. And I kept connecting with people who are like, hey, the grass is really green on this side. And like, there is opportunity and there is growth to be made. And then there was like, man, I was in the middle of my master's program and realizing that somebody was entering corporate America at an entry level rate that was the same as me being a teacher with a master's. So like an entry level space in corporate America, a master's in teaching, and that was the same. I was just like, there is just an imbalance here that isn't working. And there's an imbalance, especially as a single income household, that I was like, I selfishly need to look at what this look at this next aspect. And so for me today, held on to the parts of the skills that I love, the interests that I love, like education, learning is what I love. And I am still to this day a student in everything I do. Sometimes I'm like, do I want to go and get my PhD? Yes. Don't tell anyone. It's not, I don't need one right now, but I'm just like,
We're on a podcast right now, so people are going to hear.
gosh, please don't keep me accountable. Please don't keep me accountable. But it really is just like something that I love. And I said, I don't want to toss this entire thing out. There's so many things that we already do as teachers. And I think we had this conversation before. We underestimate ourselves, which in turn lets other systems like corporate spaces underestimate too, that she's just a teacher coming into this profession. But there's so much that we already do that I started to realize I can take some of these skill sets and easily transfer them into a different audience while still finding the growth that I always love, and while still finding ways for it to like compensate me and my family and make sure that we have the things that we enjoy without burning out, without doing these things. And so it really was just the sudden and unfortunate realization that I couldn't do the things I wanted to do and like still wear the sash of being a children's educator and still wear the sash of letting my kids enjoy the things they like. And so, it was just like that sudden realization that, man, a lot of people are leaving, which is a grander conversation, but it really is just like starting to see the paint on the walls, right? Like the smoke and mirrors was, the lights are turning on, the fog machine was turning off, and we were like, what party is this anymore? I don't even know where we're standing.
Oh my gosh, I love that illustration too, because it's like as soon as you start to see, like I know that in our original conversation we talked a little bit about that too, of like, oh my gosh, what is a contract outside of teaching? Like even just like the terms of employment was something that you're like, oh my gosh, I have no idea. Is this normal? Like calling your friends. What do I expect? What to expect from all of this? Well, part of that transition too, you had mentioned that LinkedIn was a really huge tool for you. So can you share a little bit more about how you kind of pitched yourself outside of education or how you leveraged LinkedIn to help you transition?
Absolutely. I think that LinkedIn is an incredible tool that educators specifically, everyone should leverage LinkedIn, but educators specifically. And I will say, well, I read a study once, let me preface it by saying, again, I'm an overachiever, but more than an overachiever, I'm a little bit of a rebel. So there was a study once that said like the 60 versus 100 theory. And it was like men will apply to a job if they qualify for 60% of the qualifications, whereas women only apply if they qualify for 100% of those requirements, right? And with that little rebellious touch in my spirit, I just like gathered all of that and said, if they could do it, we could do it. And so I applied to everything possible. And then once I got a million no's, when I finally got yeses, even throughout that process, if there was a job that I specifically was like, I love this company, I think the culture could be really great, I think a lot of the skill set I have or am excited to learn about, right? All of those things together, I would find the hiring manager on LinkedIn and elevator pitch myself, right? That overachieving, overconfident, maybe too confident. Again, don't keep me accountable for it, but all of those things together helped me put myself in in hiring managers' messages and say, hey, let me just tell you a little bit about myself, a little bit about my skill set and why I'm so excited about this company. And people reached out. People responded and was like, hey, we actually already hired, but I love your energy and we'll keep you focused. We'll keep you in the loop for the next one. Or we have this different position. Or, I mean, listen, was I left on red sometimes? Yes. But a lot of people responded. And I think that there are a lot more people that are willing to hear you out then there are people who are just like, no, I'm closing the door behind you. And I'm choosing to lean on the side of hope. And whenever anybody reaches out to me on LinkedIn about how I made it out as a transitioning teacher, I always respond because I want to make sure that we, especially as teachers, as educators, that we keep the door open so that we don't kind of keep ourselves in a one-track mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like I took a similar approach where I started using LinkedIn actually after I transitioned out because my route is a little bit untraditional anyway in that sense. But, this idea of getting over a fear. So I'm an introvert and I was like, started telling myself before I would send any DM or any connection request, I was like, it's already a no. Because it is. If you don't push the button, if you don't send the message, it's already a no.
Absolutely.
But if it is a yes, like the value and the connection and the relationship and all of that is unlocked. So it's like, what's the harm if it's already a no? Like, just push the button, just send the message.
And I love that you said that. Introvert, I don't know her. I've never met that person, but I will tell you, and I say this every time, we used to tell educators all the time, teaching is a little bit theatrics. Everyone, even introverts, are like, no, in my classroom, I am the most engaging, the most elaborate. And I'm like, that is who you are even outside that room, girl. Like that is still you. And so when we like invest some of that energy into other spaces, we start seeing the freedom in ourselves even outside of this field. Like, hey, I can be those things and I can continue to do that. And so I think that I love that you mentioned that because that introverted parts, we still pour into that extroverted parts of who we are because we have that theatrical engagement, right? There's no better way to build engagement than through theatrics. No matter, tell me whatever avenue it is, we are theatrical. We know theater. You'll get a whole Broadway musical, but you're going to read this LinkedIn message and you're going to smile or tell me I'm weird. I don't know.
Either way,
Either way, that's true. Either way, I got a response.
there you go. Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, even after transitioning out of the classroom, you're still a really strong advocate for public ed. Let's, why is public ed still so important to you?
So I'm a mom, like I mentioned. I'm a mom to students in public ed. I'm a product of the public school system. And public education really is a public good. And it's a public institution that is for all, regardless of that barrier, right? It's the foundation of our democracy. It's who we are as a nation. And it provides support for every child, every single child, for all children, regardless of race, barrier, area, immigration status. Everyone has access to public education. Minimizing that as people, when we start minimizing that and begin diverting that focus away from the all, is where we start to see kind of the trickle of where we're at today, of where we might start seeing foundational cracks in who we are as a system, right? We start weakening that public education. Again, it's not a public, and and I'm sure everyone who even hears me knows that it is not a perfect system. It is a very flawed system. It's a system that needs a lot of support. But when we don't pour into it actively is when it starts cracking even faster, right? That weakening of public education, weakening the perception of public education is where we start seeing a lot of the dangers. And again, right, school is so much more than just what we teach. School is so much more than just that math lesson that morning, right? It provides meals, it provides mental health services for students, after school programs and extracurriculars. It pours into students' interest through some of those after school programs. It even pours into family resources. We saw a lot of things that kind of impacted our families, our children when we were in COVID and kids didn't have access to schools, right? So ultimately investing in that public ed really invests in who we are as a society and who we want to be as a society. So I will always be a huge proponent of public ed. My kids are in public education systems and I do everything in my power to make sure their teachers know how supportive they are. How can I help? Do you need supplies in December when you're out of dry erase markers? Yes, I will definitely fund. So I'm huge for public ed because it really is just a public good that sometimes because it's in need of help sometimes,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to that point too about like teacher burnout, as we kind of mentioned earlier, a lot of what we need to do is retain those teachers in the classrooms in public ed, because they're making the impact every day with students. When classrooms are shut down, that means classroom sizes go up,
Yep.
which means that the impact per student kind of starts to dwindle. And then we start to see like the academic outcomes that are maybe also dwindling. And it all kind of fuels itself into this cycle. And as you mentioned, like the system has cracks, has significant flaws, but the people in it are really in it for the right reasons. And we're trying to make that impact on the little 5-year-old that's sitting in the desk, all the way through to the senior who's about to graduate and walk across the stage as they take the first steps into their professional life and career. So what do you think school leaders can do right now? Like if we've got a couple months before the end of the school year, or even if they're listening into this at the beginning of the school year, what are some ways, or even just one way, that they can take that first step in maybe creating that culture of positivity within their building, or what's something that they could do at the district level to help retain some of those teachers that they have?
I think that at its core, what we're missing is just like listening, right? How do we listen to teachers' needs? Nobody knows, like we mentioned, nobody knows that classroom need more than the teacher. Listen to what they need as far as resources, as far as time, right? Like, do we need 7 PLCs, or do you just need me to just give me a second to figure out my content and have lunch without having to host a lunch special? Listen to teachers. I think that ultimately when teachers feel heard, they feel valued. And when teachers feel valued, they are equally pouring into this profession. And when we are able to listen to educators, we're going to start seeing the success from our students. We'll start seeing those gains from kids because they have teachers who willingly want to be there. When we have teachers who want to be in that building, they're going to start seeing kids who want to equally be in that building. So butts and seats are more than just the funding that comes to that school. Butts and seats are definitely those gains that help us kind of start pouring into every facet of not just society, but even that school district. And so listening to teachers is going to be really important. Also, giving them a seat at the table. Give them a seat at the table when it comes to not just like educational choices, but like the adoption of either resources or the adoption of different programs. There's such a plethora of things, and sometimes teachers get cut out of those conversations. And when we talk about school board districts, right, teachers get left out of those decisions all the time. How do we pour into the school system? I tell everyone, like, everyone should run for school board sometimes, because really educators are the foundation of it, and sometimes we lose sight of it. So when we are able to listen to teachers, we're able to slowly start investing our time and resources into the proper supports for them, creating those sustainable practices for them. Just comes from listening.
I think that, and that's free. That's free to listen.
Yeah.
And then you can take action and feel more informed towards actually moving the needle on something, right? Okay, so last question, and this is always like my fun question that I always end with, but if you could wave a magic wand and fix one thing in the system, what would it be?
Would winning lottery numbers for everyone kind of cancel us all out? Because that would be nice. That would be really nice. Think it might be I wish I had like a really awesome answer for this, but I really do think that having sustainable class sizes gives us opportunities to really do our best. You want to see us thrive? Please don't put 45 kids in one classroom. I think that class sizes play such an impactful role in every part of educational challenges that we see. Is it content? Is it just like data? We will have opportunities to do all that. Is it enrichment? Is it differentiation? All of those things can be remedied by attainable class sizes, changing obviously throughout grade levels, but ultimately class sizes, for me, I think should be a quicker fix. But I say quick. Again, we have this mass exodus of teachers happening, so it's not seemingly getting better. But again, it's a magic wand, so I can do whatever I want. Give us all class sizes and let us pour into teachers more.
Yes. I think like the class sizes too, like for those that might be listening that are not in the education field, when you think about your own children and you have 1 or 2 children, think about like the number that it magnifies, right? Like if you're just preparing dinner for yourself versus magnifying if you're preparing it for 1 child or 2 child, we're preparing meals, support systems for 30 kids plus if you're in the secondary level. So it really does magnify. If it's more manageable, that's like cognitive, mindset relief, I think too, of like, okay, I don't have to worry about that specific child. I know that they're cared for in another setting. So honestly, thank you so much, Amanda, for being so open and sharing your journey. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just saying I love I love the food analogy. One, I love food, but also like as a mom who has to cook dinner, sometimes I have a kid who loves eating our culturally rich rice and beans and protein, and I have one who loves mac and cheese. Imagine having to differentiate meals for 30 people in an hour span and then running to do something else. So that dinner analogy really is perfect because it ultimately is what teachers do in classrooms. We have 30 different needs, but I need us all to have this one standard of eating. But then 30 different meals, who are we? We can't do all that. So that is an
You
incredible.
also have to manage like dietary restrictions and food allergies, portion sizes, macros, like all of the things that they each need in conjunction with just the idea of the meal.
Absolutely. It reminds me of that video. I don't know if it was TikTok on social media or something that was like, hey, we need teachers to teach kids math. Do they want to learn math? No. But make it fun. Make them learn math. They don't want to be there. And it was like all of these things. Who does that? Only martyrs do those things.
Oh yeah, we're in it for the kids. We're in it for the kids. Well, Amanda, this has been an incredible conversation. I think your story really helps remind us that educators are more than just the caretakers of content. They're the system thinkers, the mentors, the problem solvers, community builders. Whether you're leading fourth graders through math or now adults through corporate training, Amanda, you've shown that teaching is a skill set that transcends sectors. Your story is a true testament to the fact that teachers deserve both purpose and possibility, and that loving education doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice everything of yourself.
Yeah.
To all of you that are listening, if you're a teacher thinking about what's next or a principal wondering how to keep your most passionate educators in the game, let this be a reminder that the work you're doing matters and that there's more than one path to impact. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Bridging the Education Gap. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and share it with others in your community. Join us next time as we continue to explore how educators and parents can work together to empower every child's learning journey.